When I stepped into the bathroom, a shimmer on the carpet pulled my attention, a sliver of sunlight sliding through the blinds reflecting off something below. Uneasy, I looked down carefully, barefoot and cautious about anything sharp. Melissa never said she dropped anything, but accidents happen. A tiny foil disc rested nearly blended into the carpet until the light exposed it. Bending down, I lifted at the backing from a pill pack usually left when a tablet is popped out. Flipping it over, I saw symbols on one side too. I figured it stood for Tuesday since it was Wednesday, meaning it was likely yesterday's dose. I don't take any meds at all. I'm completely healthy at 35, and so is my wife Melissa. We both aced our yearly checkups not long ago, so what was a pill backing doing in our bathroom? Several daily meds crossed my mind, but birth control jumped out. I had a vasectomy 2 years back after our second kid, so I assumed Melissa wasn't taking it anymore. She's never had problems with cramps or cycles, lucky her. So why the pills? My thoughts briefly drifted to darker ideas, some illness she hadn't told me about, but then I recalled our clean bills of health from exams we discussed. If the foil was there, the pills had to be close. Locking the door, I searched and finally found them hidden in a tampon box under some aspirin. It was the same pill strip she used before my surgery when we weren't trying to have kids. Why would she start again? There was only one disturbing answer: she was being physical, involved with someone who could get her pregnant. She had cheated on me. Melissa and I had been together 9 years. I just finished college training as an engineer while she worked as an assistant. We met at a bar, and even though sparks weren't instant, she agreed to dinner. Melissa, almost as tall as my 5, was a former athlete, slim-built with a small chest. Her standout trait to me was her amazing backside. We dated a year, then married when I was 26. Our kids, now 5 and 2, pushed me to get surgery so we wouldn't have more. It felt like a perfect family, or so I believed. Melissa went back to work after each maternity leave, loyal to her job despite childcare costs. I co-founded an engineering firm with friends, enjoying the work though money wasn't huge. After finding the pill foil, I put it back and decided to think clearly. Confronting her now would do nothing. I needed strategy and proof. What came next was unclear. I had to collect facts. First, I went to work like normal, weighing options. Who was it? When did it begin? How long had it gone on? Was it someone from her office? Maybe even her boss? Was it tied to old messages? And the hardest question, were our kids really mine? Despite the storm inside me, loss, betrayal, hurt, anger, I focused on gathering proof. I went online ordering DNA kits to quietly test our children. I also bought surveillance gear, small recorders for her car and bag, and tiny cameras for the house. I doubted she was cheating at home since she was rarely there without me. Or so I thought. I also needed her phone. I knew of a cloning tool that could mirror her device, grabbing texts, emails, and calls. It meant buying another phone, which took days to arrive. During that time, I watched Melissa closely. She acted normal. Our sex life was average, once or twice a week on weekends. I saw no odd behavior, no sudden showers coming home. Either she wasn't cheating, or she was extremely careful. Maybe it had gone on so long it felt routine. The packages arrived Friday morning at my office. To avoid questions, they included DNA kits, recorders, cameras, a new phone, and the cloning kit. All set, I left work early, and at home the au pair was feeding the kids dinner. I took care to set the cameras quietly, placing one in the bathroom, one in the living room, and one in the bedroom, aimed clearly at our bed. After helping the kids with their bedtime routine, I gathered DNA samples from them and for myself and mailed everything out right away for testing. Melissa came home right on time, and we followed our normal pattern, sharing quick updates about our days without really listening. After dinner, she went to shower, which gave me the window I needed to slip voice recorders into her car and her bag, and to clone her phone. I checked the clone for any incriminating texts or emails, but found nothing. Either she was extremely careful, or she hadn't cheated at all. I couldn't tell. The weekend went by normally with our usual quiet mornings together. Before the kids woke up, we spent the days together without disruptions, which made it likely she was taking the pills shown by the missing dates on the strip. On Monday, I told her I'd be working from home, and she left for the office, giving me time to pull the flash drives from every camera and review them. The bathroom footage confirmed she had been taking the pills. The bedroom camera showed something unexpected. On Saturday night, while I cooked dinner, she showered in our bedroom, texting someone on a second phone that wasn't in her bag. She hid it in the air vent, and it wasn't there later, meaning she takes it with her when she leaves. I needed access to that phone. This was the first real proof of her suspicious behavior. Checking the morning footage, I watched her take the phone from the vent and drop it into her bag before heading to work that evening. After she came home and shower, her bag had no phone. Knowing she likely hid it again, I quietly retrieved it from Sophie's room, cloned it, and put it back, nearly getting caught when she stepped out of the shower and saw me near Sophie's bed brushing her hair. She asked softly, "Did something happen?" I shook my head. "Sometimes I like to sit with one of them," I whispered, just to remind myself how lucky I am to have such amazing kids. She smiled. "You're such a sentimental old man," she teased. "Go before you wake her." The next day, I finally opened the clone phone, and that was when everything collapsed. Tears ran down my face as I sat in my office chair, ignoring the intercom buzzing, until my secretary Michelle tapped lightly and came in. Michelle, always professional and conservatively dressed, looked older than her age with her slim build, red hair, and green eyes. Our relationship had always stayed strictly work-related. I never gave her reason to think otherwise. She once confided in me about another partner's ongoing mistreatment and threats of legal action, saying she stayed because I treated her with respect when he demanded I fire her and issued an ultimatum, her or him. I ended up Keeping 60% ownership and losing a partner. Michelle stepped out briefly to finish an earlier task, then returned locking the door behind her. She handed me napkins and quietly asked, "Tell me." I showed her the phone, the messages between Melissa and an unnamed man detailed secret meetups and intimacy, only a long-term lover would know details about Melissa that left me completely out, as if I didn't exist in her private life. "Do you know who?" she asked, staying composed. I shook my head. "How do you know?" she pressed. I explained, finding a silver pill backing on the bathroom floor and uncovering the pills. The words came easily as she listened in silence, holding my hand for the first time. "You need more information," she said. "We'll have the children's DNA results by Wednesday. Can you wait until then?" "I don't know," I answered. She nodded. "Our Portland team needs you urgently," she said, booking me a flight. "You'll be back Thursday." "I can't think about that now. You tell Melissa," she said, taking my phone and sending a message. Melissa replied right away, saying she understood and loved me. After handing my phone back, she pulled out hers. "Lorraine," she said into it. "Michelle, yes thanks. When are you free?" "This afternoon." "Perfect, see you then," she said crisply, already directing me the way she always did at work. Work felt strangely comforting, letting someone else make decisions for once. When I stepped out of the bathroom, she was holding my jacket. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You have an appointment with my friend," she said. I went along without resistance. Lorraine, Michelle's closest friend and a divorce attorney, was in the middle of handling Michelle's own divorce after uncovering her husband's affair. Without missing a beat, Michelle laid out my situation to Lorraine. As I sat there numb, this wasn't how my life was supposed to look. Lorraine, seasoned in cases like this, immediately focused on collecting every detail. "We had Gary," she called out. "It wasn't me. She was talking to someone else." A sharp sting hit my cheek as Michelle slapped me, snapping me. Fully awake, I caught a flicker of surprise and dark humor in Lorraine's eyes before she grew serious. "Gary?" she asked. I nodded. "Do you have a plan?" At that, my engineer brain kicked. "And take them both down," I said. I expected disbelief, but Michelle actually smiled. "Okay," Lorraine replied, "I understand, but that's not legally viable, so let's look at real options." She calmly outlined them without pushing any. "First, do nothing. Keep pretending for a quiet life. Second, a mutual divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Split assets, pay support. Third, go nuclear, sue for infidelity, challenge paternity, and more." My mind raced. The first was impossible. I wouldn't live as a passive fool. The second didn't work. I'd poured too much into our life. The third one, I said, nuclear. Lorraine smiled slightly. "All right, then I'll start the paperwork. You should quietly continue watching your wife gather proof, find out who, when, and where. We'll need solid evidence." "Can I keep this phone?" "It's useless to you right now," she added. I agreed and handed it over. Michelle walked me out and drove me to a small family-owned hotel, booking a room for me. "Go shower and order room service," she directed firmly. "I'll come back later with some things you'll need." I moved on autopilot, my life collapsing around me. Ordering food alone in a hotel room was the only way I could function. 9 years erased in an instant. What hurt most was how blind I'd been. How did I miss all of it? Was it her boss, the one she always went back to after every birth, claiming work and independence? But maybe it was just cover to stay close to him. I glanced at the minibar, tempted, when Michelle walked in. "Don't even think about it," she warned. "You need your head clear. Drowning yourself won't help." "Plan?" I snapped. "I had a plan, a wife, kids, a life. Now I'm betrayed, unsure if my kids are mine. Everything's destroyed, and you want me to plan?" She studied me, then checked her watch. "Enough," she said. "Business mode on. Pity time is over. Remember all the roadblocks we hit building the company. Plans collapse then too. What does that have to do with this?" she pressed. "I don't know," I said. "Everything. Remember when the patent office lost our filing and we still beat Headingley, or when the bank tried to foreclose early under pressure she cut in during any of that? Did you quit?" "It wasn't the same." "Why?" she asked. "What was different?" "Then I had something to fight for, a family relying on me," I said. "Now you still do," she replied. "Bigger even. 141 employees and their families counting on you. None of your partners can hold the company like you. If she takes half, she can sell to anyone, and Headingley could wipe you out. Is that what you want?" I stared, realizing she was right. I couldn't let everything I built vanish. I had to protect my family's future, even if my marriage to Melissa was falling apart. With that clarity, I sat down with Michelle and started planning. Locking down the company and safeguarding my children became the priority. The fog lifted, replaced by resolve. Michelle saw it and nodded. "That's the Gary I need right now," she said. "Someone who thinks ahead." We spent the night mapping out ways to lock down the company's future. At first I thought about selling my shares to the other partners, but Michelle shut that down, worried they'd gut or mishandle everything once they had control. To keep authority, we chose to set up an offshore trust where I'd sell the company at fair market value and stay on as CEO with a symbolic salary protected from local reach. Once completed, it would make me a millionaire on paper. I also planned to cash out my 401k and draw on the home equity. The house purchased solely under my name when Melissa wasn't working needed a full reassessment. I listed next steps and contacted my attorney Brian Spencer, who handled all corporate legal matters, to set a meeting for the following day. After Michelle left, I collapsed into deep sleep and woke to a message from Melissa asking about my sudden absence. I told her I'd be back Thursday, but kept things distant. Michelle showed up early the next morning, and after shower we ate breakfast at a nearby diner. Despite the chaos, I stayed focused on concrete moves. Michelle told me Brian could see us at 10, suggesting we stop at the bank first to access my 401k and home equity before meeting him. "I see the upside of consolidating everything," I said, "but won't there still be a record of my assets? Won't the court force me to split them with her?" "Only if you still have them," Michelle smiled. "That's Where Vegas comes in after you gather the cash, spend a week there, and burn through it before filing for divorce. Then in court you'll look broke, buried in debt, the house on the edge of foreclosure, and your income barely enough to survive, unless of course the kids aren't yours. If they are, put the entire 401k into a trust for their college. Melissa can't touch it. She might even end up paying you support. When will the DNA results arrive? I paused. Lifting my phone, the lab said they should be online today. I opened the email link, then set the phone down. I wasn't sure I could face it yet. May I? Michelle asked, and I handed it to her. She scrolled, studying the screen while I searched her face for a hint. She looked up. Results aren't posted yet, she said. Tracking says within 12 hours. Let's go, she added, standing up. The bank visit moved fast, pulling equity from the house and cashing out the 401k. I closed every savings account, including the kids' college funds, transferring everything into an account under my name. The joint account with under $10,000 stayed untouched. Our lawyer raised a key issue when we outlined the plan. You missed something, he said. You have a marriage contract. I do, I asked, surprised. I didn't realize it was tied to the partnership deal. When the firm was formed, all partners had to sign a prenup to protect the company if a marriage ended. He explained it only covers company assets, not personal ones. As an employee, it can claim only your salary and 401k, that's all. What I recommend, he continued without judgment, is using the released home equity to reinvest in the company. Buy out one partner. Robert seems eager to cash out. You might need a short loan from the company pension fund to bridge the gap. Repayments would come from your reduced salary, lowering your assessed assets. Since everything routes back to the company, it stays protected. Your credit will take a hit from foreclosure, and you'll lose half the remaining bank funds. Beyond that, she gets nothing. We can also adjust salaries to make hers higher, putting her on the hook for support. How will I live? I asked. If my entire paycheck goes to loan payments, I still need to cover living costs, including my 2 kids, and maybe more. Let's pause on the children, he said. Have you decided what you'll do if they aren't yours? Will you stay involved? I don't know, I admitted. It's too much right now. I need the facts first before deciding anything. Making decisions like this. Remember the plans you discussed with the other attorneys, he reminded me. I'm confident the lawsuit against her company will generate enough to clear the loan and reinstate your full salary. After everything settles, you can also pursue reimbursement for child-related expenses from their biological father if they're proven not to be yours post-divorce and separate from the settlement. Could you contact Robert about a sale for me? Asked. I don't think I can handle that conversation right now, he nodded. I'll reach out and keep you posted. We shook hands as we left his office, and for a brief moment relief washed over me as the pieces began to fall into place. A quiet sense of satisfaction followed until reality pushed back in, reminding me why these plans existed, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. We stopped at a diner for lunch, and I finally worked up the nerve to check my phone, opening the email link and handing it to Michelle, watching her face change. I'm so sorry, Gary, she said, softly giving it back. I read it myself. Neither child was biologically mine, though they shared the same father. The devastation of losing both kids was overtaken by a surge of fury at the betrayal. She hadn't just lied about their paternity, she'd also pushed me into a vasectomy. Gary, Michelle snapped, grounding me. This isn't the moment. Stay steady. We'll handle this. Fighting to rein in my anger, I took slow breaths. Violent thoughts flashed through my mind. Revenge, even hiring someone to confront the man who fathered the children I believed were mine. Michelle pulled herself together and guided me out of the diner. Lorraine called. She wants to see you, she said as we drove to her office. Lorraine looked grave. When we arrived, I have an initial report from the private investigator, she said. Melissa had a visitor last night. A man stayed at your house. I have cameras there. I said I'll swap the flash drives and we can review them. Good, she replied. Do it now, then we'll plan. That footage could be critical. The au pair is with Sophie and James at the play center. I added, I can't go back without raising suspicion. I'm supposed to be out of town for work. Lorraine checked her phone. The au pair is occupied. I'll monitor things and let you know if Melissa leaves. We drove hard the 30 minutes to my house. I switched the flash drives quickly, checked every room, saw nothing out of place, and headed back to Lorraine's office. When we reviewed the footage, I skipped the bedroom clips. I couldn't take seeing more. The evidence was enough. Her boss, Bill Wright, walked into my house using his own key, and when James greeted him calling him Papa Bill, I broke down completely. I couldn't watch anymore. Lorraine saw everything, and Michelle for the first time wrapped her arms around me as I cried. After a while I pulled myself together. Would you like to rest? Lorraine asked, but I shook my head. The pain dulled, giving way to a cold focus. What's the next step? I asked. I've secured the employment terms from your wife's company, Lorraine explained. There's an anti-fraternization clause which gives us grounds to sue for violation, especially since the other party is senior management. We looped in your corporate attorney on my advice, and I urged you to call him immediately. She received copies of the prenuptial agreement by email. This changes everything, she said, reviewing it. Your partner's strategy is solid. If he agrees to sell, we pour resources into the company to protect it, then we pursue her company for breach, him for emotional distress, her for falsifying the birth certificates, and both of them for child-related costs. It all depends on whether Robert agrees to sell. I said we'll have to wait on his answer. Michelle drove me back to the hotel, and just as I reached my room there was a knock. It was Michelle. Come on, she said. You shouldn't be here alone. Why not? I asked. Numb. Because you'll spiral or hit the minibar, she replied flatly. I need to watch you. She gathered my bag and led me to her car. Where are we going? I asked. Detached to wherever, she said. I've got a Spare room you can stay in, I started to protest, but stopped. Her look shut me down instantly. I had never been inside Michelle's place, and was surprised to see it was nearly as spacious as mine. Even though it was a single-level home, she guided me to a bedroom with its own bathroom. Take a shower and change, she said firmly. Dinner in 30 minutes. We ate in silence. The meal looked amazing, yet I barely tasted it. My head was spinning, emotions colliding too fast to process. I felt enraged but hollow. Locked onto carrying out the plan, I was moving on instinct fueled by purpose, wondering what came next. After dinner the phone rang, and I stiffened, hoping it wasn't Melissa. It wasn't. Hello, I answered dully. Robert, he said. Why? He asked. Robert and I had been close since college, bonding over a project that later became the backbone of our company. Originally, I held the majority share because I invested more upfront. Melissa is cheating on me, I said plainly. All this time? He reacted, stunned. All this time? I confirmed. And none of the kids are mine. There was silence. So you want to move all assets into the company and lean on the prenup, he said, already grasping our partnership better than I did. I'll keep 5% and stay on as a consulting engineer, he offered. I'll handle it with HR. The rest is yours. Okay, I agreed. I'll have Brian draw it up. Gary, he added after a pause. I'm really sorry. It won't feel like it now, but it does get better. I promise. I've been where you are. Only then did I remember he'd gone through a divorce about 4 years earlier. He never talked about it, but I knew it had been ugly and that he'd relied on the marriage contract himself. The next morning Michelle woke me with coffee. Let's move, she said. We have a lot ahead. First we went to Brian Spencer, the company attorney, who already had the buyout documents ready. The deal was finished in under 30 minutes. I liquidated everything, home equity savings and my 401k, and took a loan against the company pension to cover the rest. On paper, I now owed close to $1 million, and my paycheck was nearly cut in half after deductions. Next we went to Lorraine's office. She reviewed the buyout papers and smiled. This is ideal, she said. I'll draft the filings today, and we can submit Monday. Where do you want her served? Somewhere that humiliates her the most, I said. If we could put it on a Super Bowl billboard, I'd pay gladly. Lorraine laughed. We'll serve her at her office, she decided. Monday morning at 10, assuming court approval clears. By then, if I file today, we should have confirmation tomorrow afternoon. I agreed. So, what's next? Michelle asked, already directing things. We have 2 more stops before you go back to the office and pretend you just fought fires in Portland. Can you hold on at home until Monday? I think I have to, I said. No guessing needed, she replied. Tell me what you need to get through. Until then I don't know, I admitted. Any good news? She smiled. Let's go. Unexpectedly, we pulled up to the medical center where I'd had my checkups and the procedure that made sure I couldn't father children. Why are we here? I asked. Didn't you want good news? She teased. Come inside. She arranged for us to see my doctor right away. I looked at Michelle, who stayed back as I entered, then gestured for her to join me, and she did. Dr. Harrington didn't question her presence. He understood our roles and situation. Gary, he said, I understand you're asking about reversing a vasectomy. My eyes widened. Is that actually possible? I glanced at Michelle, who smiled slightly. Yes, it's very possible, Dr. Harrington said, with about a 95% success rate for reversals. Done after 3 years, though it's a longer surgery under general anesthesia, but the odds are very good you could have children again. Tears filled my eyes at the thought of being able to become. The idea of being a father again filled me with a fragile sense of hope. I know this is a lot to process, Dr. Harrington continued, handing me pamphlets explaining the procedure and the cost, stressing it wouldn't be covered by insurance if you choose to move forward. We can begin with preliminary tests. Thank you, Dr. Michelle cut in smoothly, collecting the papers. Will be in touch. She stood, and I followed her out of the clinic. Is that good news enough for you? She asked quietly, offering a small smile. Without thinking, I hugged her, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, I whispered against her hair, then stepped back quickly. Sorry, it's all right, Gary, she said kindly. As we got into her car, she added, one more stop, then we head back to the office. Over the years I'd been to Bill Wright's house a handful of times while Melissa worked for him. He and his wife Stephanie lived in a gated neighborhood just outside the city, often hosting corporate gatherings. When Michelle and I arrived, Stephanie was clearly expecting us and ushered us inside without hesitation. She guided us into what looked like Bill's home office, motioned for us to sit, and got straight to the point. How can I help you? Stephanie asked, looking directly at me. My throat tightened before I finally managed to ask, did you know? Stephanie let out a tired sigh. No, she said softly. I suspected, but never had proof. Nothing solid enough to take to a lawyer. If I had, I would have taken him for everything. Join the club, Michelle muttered under her breath. Stephanie asked if I had evidence, and I nodded. Proof that none of my children are mine, I said, my voice trailing off as emotion closed my throat. She expressed sympathy, then shared her own long-held suspicions about Bill and Melissa over the years, but admitted every attempt to confirm them had failed. She regretted not pushing harder. If she'd been certain. What will you do now? She asked, curious about my next move. I hesitated, unsure whether to trust Bill's wife with my plans, worried she might warn him. In the end, I decided I wanted him blindsided the way I had been. The real question is, what will you do? I replied. Stephanie understood my caution and didn't fault me. She asked Michelle for a referral to a divorce attorney, and Michelle handed her a card. Thank you, Stephanie said, taking it. Will a week be enough? I nodded. That should work. Great, she said, rising, signaling the end of our meeting. She hugged me briefly and kissed my cheek. I'm so sorry, she repeated. Take care of him, she told Michelle, who flinched slightly. At the intimacy he deserves better than what that woman did to him back at the office. I spent the rest of the day finishing tasks from Portland. As evening came I headed home. Michelle stopped by my office at her usual time, leaned in, and said she was leaving for the day, slipping back into her professional tone. The sudden distance left me unsettled. I'd felt something growing, but maybe it was only in my head. I wished her good night sincerely. Thankful for all she'd done. I stayed late working through a backlog. Around 8 Melissa texted asking when I'd be home. I said another hour or two, explaining post-trip wrap-ups. She replied that she'd be asleep by then, sending love and kisses again. I couldn't bring myself to answer. I worked until nearly 11 hoping she'd already be asleep. When I got back the house was dark and quiet. When I arrived everything looked normal. I checked on Sophie and James, both sleeping peacefully. Emotion surged and I locked myself in the bathroom so Melissa wouldn't see me cry over children who weren't biologically mine, their future still undecided, yet my love for them unchanged. How could I walk away so suddenly? They'd been my entire world. Now they were also living proof of Melissa's betrayal. I chose to wait, unsure what would come next. Sleep came in fragments, and when I woke Melissa was gone. The housekeeper was with the kids, and my thoughts spiraled. Did she know they weren't mine? Had she planned everything all along? By Monday, thoughts of infidelity had hardened into resolve. I initially swore I'd make her pay, even targeting the au pair, ensuring she'd never work in that position again. Then I stopped. What was I doing? Unloading my rage on someone with no real power. It would solve nothing, a no-win situation. I reasoned she could have quit or warned me, yet she clearly cared for the kids. She'd been with them since before Sophie was born. Maybe my anger was aimed wrong. I went into work. Michelle was already there, sharp and professional, like nothing unusual had occurred. She said she'd cleared my calendar for marketing. I sat down, and she brought our coffee, something she'd never done before. Marketing? I asked. Since when am I part of that? She smiled, a strangely grounding sight. We need a strategy, she said. This is the last piece of Lorraine's plan. Confused, I asked what plan? We have to go public. Michelle replied, tell everyone, her friends, family, church circles, anyone who knows her, who she really is and what she's done. I'll look awful, I objected. Mocked as a cheated on man raising another guy's kids. You have to tell your story, she insisted. If you don't, Melissa will, and her version will paint you as abusive or unfit. People may question you, but getting ahead of it weakens her defense. Michelle assembled a media packet with proof of Melissa's affair, including a private investigator's report, DNA results showing I wasn't the father of either child, and footage from my house. One clip showed James greeting Bill and others in rooms I hadn't known about and didn't want to. Later that morning, an email from Lorraine arrived. Stephanie had given her Bill's DNA, which she matched with my samples, confirming he was the biological father of both kids. The word kids hit me hard. Suddenly they didn't feel like mine anymore. We added this to packets for Melissa's and my parents, her siblings, and extended contacts on Facebook and LinkedIn, all scheduled by courier for Monday at 10 a.m. Timed with a planned trigger. I just had to survive the weekend. Drawing on my engineering skills, I put together a small device in under an hour, a motor timer and battery set to vibrate after a delay. Friday night, after the au pair left, I slipped it under Sophie's pillow. Timed for our usual 6 a.m. wake-up. Saturday morning played out perfectly. Sophie bursting into our room killed any chance of closeness. I smiled privately, staying busy all day handling chores Melissa had long ignored when she commented. I shrugged and said they needed doing that night. When she tried to get close, I pretended to be asleep after she came out of the bathroom. Sunday, her daughter's disrupted sleep thanks to my device sent her back to Melissa's room. The day was spent at the zoo with the kids all day. Emotions tore at me seeing Melissa, the woman I loved or thought I did, and the children I'd raised as my own. I nearly broke several times, biting my cheek until it bled. To stay steady, but I got through it. Monday came and I was steady. I told Melissa I'd work from home, claiming I needed to talk with the au pair. As she headed out, I buried myself in emails, barely responding to her goodbye. Once she left, I noted the time, 8:15. The au pair knocked, suggesting the play center. I declined keeping the kids home, which surprised her. James sulked, but agreed despite wanting to go. A little after 9, Michelle showed up unexpectedly, but I let her in. It was the first time I'd ever made her coffee. At 9:30 we sat together. Lorraine joined for the conference call. Gary, she said, this is your final chance to stop. I'm not telling you that you should. I'm only saying if you've reconsidered over the weekend, now is the moment to speak. No, I answered flatly. Then I'll see you on the other side, Lorraine said, confirming everything was ready. I watched my inbox, waiting for service confirmation. At exactly 10 a.m. the first email arrived, then the second 3 minutes later, and the third 5 minutes after that. Then my phone rang, expecting Melissa, but it was my mother. Gary, hi Mom, I said. What's happening? She asked. Did you read the packet I sent? I asked. Yes. Then you know as much as I do, I said. Melissa has been cheating on me, most likely our entire marriage, with her boss. The kids aren't mine. I'm divorcing her. Gary, you can't know Mom, I have to work, I have calls. And I hung up, only for the phone to ring again immediately. This time it was Melissa. Gary, I didn't answer, letting her keep going. We need to talk, she said. I stayed silent. I'm coming home. And with that she ended the call. Melissa is on her way. I told Michelle I'll step out, she offered. I wanted to ask her to stay, but the words wouldn't come. I just looked at her. Call me, she said, when you know what's happening, and she left. About 20 minutes later Melissa pulled up outside. I heard her car. She skipped the garage, unsure what she'd face. I waited as she entered the house, and walked into my office, sitting across from me. Gary, I'm not interested. I cut in. Actually uninterested, I corrected. I don't even want. No, I interrupted again. I don't want to hear a single word from you. You lied to me for 9 damn years. Neither child is mine. You Pushed me into a vasectomy while you stayed on birth control so you could keep seeing Bill. Her eyes went wide. So no, Melissa, I continued, I don't care what you have to say. My lawyer's card was in the packet you got when you were served. If there's anything you think I need to know, tell her. What about the children? She asked. What children? I shot back. I don't have children. And if it were up to you, I never would have. I could ask why you did this, but I don't want another lie. I don't care about your excuses, explanations, or reasons. I want this over so I can save what's left of my life and move on. I called the au pair into the room. She could hear through the open door. You're fired. I said, now leave. What? She cried. Why? Because you covered for her. I pointed at Melissa. You knew she was sleeping with her boss. And I don't know if you knew the kids weren't mine, but you knew what was happening. I have video of you talking about the kids with Bill. Get out, Gary. Melissa protested. You can't fire her. I pay her. The au pair looked at Melissa, hopeful. Fine. I said, I've already contacted the agency and told them you were complicit in an affair. If Melissa wants to keep you, she'll handle your pay, taxes, vacation, pension, sick leave, and insurance. The au pair went pale. Losing agency backing would make future work almost impossible. Agencies talk now. Get out, I told her, and she rushed away. Did you have to do that? Melissa asked. You're talking again. I said, I told you I don't want to hear it. What I want is for you to pack, take your kids, and leave my house. This is my house too, she argued. According to the records, no, I cut, and it's only in my name until a judge says otherwise. Get out. My raised voice startled her. James came in. Mommy, he said. Sophie fell. Melissa, frozen and crying, stood and went to her daughter. I shut my office door and stayed inside while she packed. A few minutes later she came back holding Sophie. Are you going to say goodbye to Sophie? Not like this, I said. She's not my daughter and he's not my son. Take them to Papa Bill and let him raise his kids. They're nothing to me, Gary. I get out. I heard the front door slam, and moments later her car drove off. She was gone, and I finally breathed out, feeling like I'd been holding everything in. My breath caught, and I broke down completely. I didn't hear the door open, and startled when arms wrapped around me, I folded inward, burying my face in my hands. When I looked up, Michelle was holding me. She pulled me close, and I cried against her shoulder. It took a while to pull myself together. I had just thrown away 9 years, my marriage, my children, my life. It all felt gone. I didn't want to face anything anymore. Michelle stepped in again. Let's go, she said. Lorraine warned it could take Melissa about 4 hours to get an emergency order to take the house because of the kids, and it being the marital home. She'll come back. Do you really want to let her kick you out of your own house? We grabbed clothes and critical paperwork. I still had to figure out where to stay, but we loaded my things into Michelle's car and left, first stopping by the office where I was officially served. Later that day Lorraine called with an update. Not only had Melissa been granted temporary occupancy of the house, there was also a restraining order barring me from coming within 100 meters of it. If I needed anything, I'd have to arrange it through Melissa's attorney at my own cost. Disoriented, I ended up in Michelle's guest room. My clothes hung in her closet, and my documents were neatly filed in her office cabinets. A week passed since Melissa filed for divorce. I worked during the day, then returned with Michelle for dinner and sleep in the morning. She brought me coffee, made breakfast, and we drove to work together. Nothing between us felt different. She stayed strictly professional aside from one consoling hug after my first breakdown at her place. Smiles were rare given everything. Monday morning we met with attorneys representing Melissa and her employer. The details were fuzzy to me, but apparently we'd filed a claim for an amount the company couldn't cover, even with insurance capped at $1 million. Their lawyers were clinical. Lorraine, my attorney, seemed satisfied. What's next? Their counsel asked. Immediate and permanent termination of the senior executive with forfeiture of pension benefits, Lorraine said, plus retaining Melissa for 3 years with a payout of $1.5 million. I checked out during the back and forth. Eventually they accepted, though. My portion dropped to $750,000, which would cover part of my debt to the pension fund. Payment will be made upon finalization of the divorce, Lorraine stated. And they agreed. She stayed with us for the next meeting with Bill's firm's lawyers. When I left that office, I was $500,000 richer enough to fully repay the pension loan and keep a small cushion after the divorce. My last meeting that day was with Melissa's attorneys. She was there but wouldn't look at me. When I walked in, Michelle and Lorraine flanked me. The financial demands in the divorce filing are excessive. Melissa's lawyer began. Your client is CEO and majority shareholder of a company valued around $20 million plus asset savings. And allow me to interrupt, Lorraine said, sliding documents forward. Under the prenuptial agreement signed by all parties, the company is excluded from division. My client recently made a major investment in another venture, draining most of his savings, retirement funds, and home equity. He also borrowed from the company pension, which reduced his salary. He now earns less than your client and will seek interim support while he stabilizes. What about the children? The lawyer asked. Lorraine replied, DNA results confirm the children are not his. She falsified birth records to fraudulently list my client as father. We're also seeking damages for coercing surgical sterilization under false paternity. Your client may accept these terms, vacate the marital home, and receive half of the joint account currently valued at $9,443.15. The attorney reviewed the paperwork, glanced at Melissa, then at me. Gary, please, she said. I begged for years. I said 9 damn years. Day after day you lied to me. There is nothing you can say that I want to hear. Melissa looked at her attorney and gave a small nod. Then she signed the documents. I wasn't there when she moved out. Instead I received a letter from her lawyer confirming the restraining order was lifted and the house was transferred to me. Even though I briefly considered moving back and I chose to put it on the market, it didn't completely clear my bank debt, but it closed the gap enough to satisfy them. 2 months went by, and I was still staying in Michelle's spare room after the divorce. Melissa moved back in with her parents, and despite all the evidence they stood by her and refused to speak to me directly. That wasn't really a loss for me for reasons I never understood. Stephanie never finalized her divorce from Bill like she had promised. I didn't ask why, especially after he lost his corporate position and pension. They sold their place in the gated neighborhood and downsized to a small apartment. Bill managed to land a respectable job using his industry contacts and experience, though the pay was far less than before. I had no idea whether Melissa and Stephanie ever crossed paths again. I hadn't seen Stephanie since that day in her lawyer's office and had no interest in doing so. I was sitting at my desk at work when Michelle knocked and walked in without waiting. "Bill Wright is dead," she said flatly. "What?" I said. How apparently. Stephanie caught him with Melissa again," she explained, "and she shot him." I leaned back in my chair, a broad smile spreading across my face. I tried to stop it, but couldn't. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, I finally said. Michelle laughed. "Are you mad at me for being happy about this?" I asked. "Not at all," she replied calmly. "That idiot got exactly what he deserved. By the way, this just came in," she said. "An official envelope on my desk." We both knew what it was. I opened it and exhaled. "That's it," I said softly. "I'm finally free." "Finally," Michelle repeated, and without warning she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't quick or light, it was deep and intense, leaving me stunned. When she pulled away, I sat frozen, surprised and tight. "For 9 years," she said quietly, "I've been beside you. You're the most honorable man I've ever known. Not once did you look at me the wrong way or cross a line, and I respected you for it. I've waited 9 years for this moment, and now that you're free, I want you to know not all women deceive. We work perfectly together. I know you completely the way a wife knows her husband, and you know me too. Please give me the chance to prove it." I couldn't speak. Memories of everything we'd shared rushed back long before Melissa's betrayal surfaced, and I realized I already cared deeply for Michelle. There was no way not to. After years of working so closely, especially through my marriage to Melissa, I didn't need time to think. The truth was already clear. "Do you have anything to say?" she asked, worry visible on her face, something I rarely saw. "How many?" I asked. Confusion crossed her expression. "How many?" "What?" she said. "Children." I clarified. "How many children should we have?"